week 2 of college football was absolutely phenomenal. But week 3? Well, it kind of sucks. There's not a single ranked versus ranked matchup on deck for this weekend. Really not too many intriguing matchups as a whole. And I would say that if you had to miss a weekend of college football for a wedding, or birthday, vacation, family reunion, whatever you got to do, this might be it. There aren't too many big games on deck, but we're still going to predict what we believe to be some of the biggest ones right here at the channel with our week 3 prediction videos. And then later this week, some deeper analysis on 3 mystery games, leaving you in suspense. We're going to have individual videos for 3 games later on this week that aren't up here on the board to get you some content for the rest of this week and to kind of give you something to keep your eye on as we approach Saturday afternoon. Before we get to that, guys, as always, please continue to like, comment, subscribe, and welcome back, as always, to the Gridiron Expert here on YouTube. Make sure to check out everything down in the description below, including our expert picks over on our website, thegridironexpert.com. You know, that's the beauty of it. Might not be the most blockbuster weekend of college football, but there is still money to be made, and you will make money with us here at the Gridiron Expert with our expert picks beating out over 80% of the national handicappers each of the last 5 years. We went 8-2 against the spread last week. We are 5-1 in our best bets, so you do not want to miss out on that. The link for that, again, down in the description below, as well as our Patreon account and our mailing address to send us some of your team's gear to be represented in every single Gridiron Expert video. So let's dive into the 5 games that we have up here right now. Still some games that you are going to want to watch. No ranked versus ranked matchups. These are games you're going to want to watch on Saturday afternoon, no doubt about it. And we start in the Big Ten, an intriguing conference matchup between number 7 Penn State and Illinois. And, you know, this just feels like a potential upset, right? It feels like a possible upset brewing in Champaign. Early morning game in Champaign. Illinois really hasn't looked all that great this year, and then they come out, get off to a fast start, and upset Penn State like they did a few years ago, where these two teams met in Happy Valley, went to 9 overtimes, with the Fighting Illini winning 20-18 because the NCAA is terrible and ruined the overtime fun. Because imagine, 9 overtimes, we would have seen a game into the 70s, 80s, maybe. Instead, we got 20-18. Very unfortunate. But you look at this game now. Penn State's playing lights out football. Illinois, they are not. And I'm going to go out there right now and say I don't expect an upset. I don't expect Illinois to pull off this victory like we've seen them do in years past. Penn State will win this game, and I think they win it comfortably. Why? Because Illinois defensively is not the same Illinois team we saw last year. They are struggling mightily. The Fighting Illini are giving up over 475 yards per game. Last week against Kansas, gave up 539 yards to the Jayhawks in a 34-23 loss in Lawrence. Then they gave up over 400 yards to Toledo, barely surviving the Rockets 30-28. Penn State, on the other hand, the Nittany Lions averaging over 500 yards per game through 2 games this season. They're averaging 279 through the air with Drew Aller. They're having over 230 per game on the ground with Nick Singleton and Katron Allen. This is a very, very good Penn State team, one that has a legitimate shot to make the college football playoff. And I ultimately think this offense is way too much for this Fighting Illini defense to handle. And I definitely do not think that Luke Altmaier and this Illinois offense, which has been sputtering all year long, is all of a sudden going to wake up and move the ball and put up a lot of points against this Penn State defense that's giving up just 224 yards per game, including just 110 through the air. Penn State is dang good, guys, and they will once again show it to the country on Saturday. Minnesota at number 20, North Carolina. This is a very intriguing game. This might be the most intriguing game on deck, at least on our big board right now, because it's the battle of Minnesota's defense versus North Carolina's offense. It's a battle between a Minnesota team that has, Big Ten West aspirations. Of course, this game will not mean anything towards those aspirations, but one that has aspirations, and a North Carolina team that has the shot to make the ACC championship for the 2nd year in a row. But who's going to get the edge here? Who's going to win? Will it be the Minnesota defense or will it be the North Carolina offense? You look at Minnesota. They're 2-0, and they are lucky to be 2-0. Survived Nebraska in a game where Jeff Sims really threw the game away to the Golden Gophers, and they beat Eastern Michigan 25-6 last week. North Carolina, on the other hand, looked great in week 1 against South Carolina. Looked phenomenal. Then last week, barely survived Appalachian State 40-34 in double overtime. 1 week after racking up 9 sacks against the Gamecocks, the Tar Heels didn't have a single sack against the Mountaineers and gave up nearly 500 yards of offense. It's a little bit concerning. Which defense, which team shows up for North Carolina in Chapel Hill on Saturday? That is the question we have to ask ourselves. The one thing that stands out to me right now is the Minnesota rushing defense. That's the concern. You go back to the Nebraska game. The Golden Gophers didn't have an answer for Jeff Sims on the ground. They didn't have an answer for Nebraska on the ground. Jeff Sims, 91 rushing yards, 181 rushing yards total for the Cornhuskers. They continue to do that, probably would have won the game. Drake May, we know he has some mobility. North Carolina is averaging over 240 rushing yards per game. I think they're able to exploit that Minnesota rushing defense. Matt Brown, I think, going to be a little bit smarter than that of Matt Rule. They're going to go out there, play their side of the ball. Drake May, obviously a significantly better quarterback than Jeff Sims or any quarterback that Minnesota has seen in recent weeks, even dating back to last year. North Carolina forces Ethan Kaliak-Manis to throw the ball in this game because the Tar Heels rushing defense hasn't been all that terrible. They find a way to get this win. UNC's offense is the difference maker. North Carolina improves to 3-0 with a big non-conference win over Minnesota. Number 8, Washington at Michigan State. Here's what I'm going to say about this game. I was going to pick Washington pretty big before the Mel Tucker news broke. Once that broke, I love Washington even more. Now, some will say, no, this is one of those classic scenarios where the coach gets fired, or in this case, suspended. He's getting fired, but he's suspended, and it motivates the team. They come out playing with more energy and more passion, and that's great. Maybe Michigan State does do that. Maybe they do that for a quarter. Maybe they do that for a half. But Michigan State will not beat Washington on Saturday. The Huskies have one of, if not the best offense in the country. Michael Penix already 859 yards, 8 touchdowns through 2 games this year. The Huskies averaging over 565 yards per game, including 472 through the air. Michigan State has beat 2 teams. They beat Central Michigan. They beat Richmond. They haven't played anybody of the caliber of the Huskies. Now they've got this coaching scandal going on. They really have not faced a defense like Washington's either. The Huskies come in. They win this game by at least 14 points. Just like they did last year, 39-28. Some will say, it was only an 11-point victory. It was relatively close. Washington led that game 36-14 at the end of the third quarter, entering the fourth quarter. Washington dominated that game from start to finish last year. They will do it again this year, once again showing why they are one of the best teams in the entire country. Michigan State, we didn't think it was going to be that big of a year for them anyways. Things certainly not looking that good now with the drama happening in East Lansing. Number 11, Tennessee at Florida. This, you could make an argument, is the biggest game of the weekend. A big-time rivalry game in the SEC East, where Tennessee traveling to Gainesville, has not won at Florida since 2003. They have lost 9 straight games at Florida. Very, very interesting. Can the Volunteers end that streak? We believe they will. We believe Tennessee ends the losing streak in Gainesville. You look at Florida, right? They looked god-awful against Utah. They were garbage against Utah. 13 rushing yards, had no answer for the Utes defense, lost that game 24-11? And then they beat McNeese. Congrats, you beat McNeese 49-7. That's not something to hang your hat on. Tennessee's performance against Austin Peay is nothing to hang their hat on either. They only beat them 30-13, really struggled to pull away, but at least they have a win over a Power 5 opponent in Virginia. Virginia, nothing to brag about either, but did win that game 49-13. The Tennessee offense, guys, despite the loss of Hendon Hooker, despite the loss of their top wide receivers, is still very, very electric. 477 yards per game. Joe Milton, 429 yards and 4 touchdowns on the year, averaging over 250 rushing yards per game as well, with Jalen Wright and Jabari Small leading the way. Take a look a little bit deeper. You look at Tennessee's defense. They're only allowing 87 rushing yards per game. That's a really, really good mark. They've, again, only 2 teams. Virginia, one of the worst offenses in the country, and then they beat Austin Peay out of the FCS. Nothing to brag about too much. Florida averages 170 rushing yards per game, but those numbers are skewed because they rush for 327 against McNeese. Against Utah, only 13. Then you're going to have somewhere in the middle here. I think Florida will be lucky if they can break 125 on the ground against the Volunteers. Bottom line is, guys, Tennessee, to me, owns the advantage offensively with Joe Milton and this high-powered offense. Defensively, you can make an argument that you lean Florida, but Tennessee is right there with them. They can absolutely hang. And bottom line, too, is I still don't have faith in Graham Mertz to deliver in the clutch. He's looked decent at times throughout the year, but this Florida team still feels a little bit out of whack. Yes, they've got home field advantage. Yes, they're going to be hyped because it is a rivalry game, but Tennessee, by and large, is the better team. And I think they finally overcome their road woes and beat the Gators in Gainesville. Big time win for the Volunteers, who still have college football playoff aspirations, no doubt about it. And then finally, guys, the last big game up here, Pittsburgh at West Virginia. We've got the backyard brawl. Had to throw it up there, one of the biggest rivalries in all of college football. one of the more underrated rivalries in all of college football. The 106th meeting between the Panthers and the Mountaineers. Pittsburgh winning the renewed rivalry last year, 38-31 in the season opener. It was an absolutely thrilling game. And now you look at both these teams, and neither of them looks good. Pittsburgh looked terrible last week against Cincinnati, losing at home in an upset 27-21 to the Bearcats of the Big 12, being outgained by 109 yards in that game, allowing over 200 rushing yards to the Bearcats. West Virginia beat Duquesne last week. Great, still allowed 17 points, which isn't great. And then they lost to Penn State in the season opener, 38-15, where they were outgained by 170 yards. So again, neither team has looked all that impressive. All the more reason this game was a pretty evenly matched game, where if you look at the spread, it's about even, maybe slightly in favor of Pittsburgh as a 1-2 point favorite at the max. But you look a little bit deeper. Right now, I still like Phil Jurkovec a little bit better at quarterback at Pittsburgh over that of Garrett Green at West Virginia. I like Phil Jurkovec just a little bit more. Jurkovec, 393 yards, 4 touchdowns on the year. Garrett Green, 402 yards and 4 touchdowns as well. West Virginia owns the running back advantage. No doubt about it. C.J. Donaldson, very, very underrated. People don't talk about this guy nearly enough. So I think Pittsburgh owns the QB edge. I think West Virginia owns the running back edge. But I do think overall Pittsburgh owns the defensive edge. It didn't look great last week against Cincinnati, but I have faith in Pat Narduzzi to turn things around. We know he's a defensive-minded coach. We've seen how well these defenses have been over the last few years for Pittsburgh. I do think that they had that advantage over West Virginia. And bottom line is, I think overall, collectively, Pittsburgh owns the offensive edge, they own the coaching edge, they own the defensive edge. The one thing they don't own is home field advantage, and I believe the Panthers can overcome that. Pittsburgh wins a close game at West Virginia in a game that I truly view as a 50-50 matchup. It could go either way, but I'm leaning Pittsburgh in this game. Give me the Panthers to improve to 2-1 and bounce back from a disappointing showing against Cincinnati. West Virginia down to 1-2. One of those toss-up games that Neil Brown desperately needs to win, but they fall just short. So there you have it, guys. 5 big marquee games, if you will, heading into week 3. Again, we don't have a single ranked versus ranked matchup on deck. It's going to be a little bit of a chiller weekend, a little bit of a lackluster weekend. Week 4 going to be absolutely phenomenal, no doubt about it. So week 3, sit back, relax, enjoy these matchups, enjoy our 3 mystery matchups that we have coming your way starting tomorrow. Don't want to miss out on that. We're going to have you covered every step of the way. This week, though, not going to be nearly as great as last week, but hey, then again, it is college football, and anything can happen on any given Saturday. So guys, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and of course, check out everything down in the description below, including those expert picks over on our website, thegridironexpert.com. Again, if you want the spread picks for some of these games right here, 10 spread picks a week, 8-2 last week, 5-1 in our best bet. You want guaranteed winnings? This is the place for you. Go sign up over on thegridironexpert.com today. Link down in the description, as well as our Patreon account, as well as our mailing address to send us some gear. All the goods down in the description below. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on The Gridiron Expert.